Hi, I'm Kathy Love with EFNEP, the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program and the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Research and Extension. I'm excited today to show you one of my favorite recipes in the Let's Cook cookbook from the Eating Smart Being Active curriculum. If you're taking an EFNEP class, you'll be receiving this cookbook when you graduate. I love this recipe. It has grains in it and vegetables and a nice spicy flavor. So let's go over the ingredients. First ingredient is couscous. You may not be familiar with couscous, but it's a little teeny tiny pasta and it's really easy to fix, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Next, we are going to be using canned black beans. You can choose low sodium if you're watching your sodium. Also, corn. I'm using canned corn today, but you could use frozen corn. We're going to be using half of a bell pepper, and I've chosen a red one just because I like the color. And then it calls for half of a medium onion. I'm using 2 little onions that I actually grew in my garden, so we'll be using those in our recipe today. For the dressing, you'll be needing apple cider vinegar and vegetable oil. The recipe calls for fresh lime juice, which you can certainly use, but I'm using bottled lime juice today, and cumin. So before we get started, I'm going to wash my hands really well with soap and warm water for 20 seconds. I'm also going to scrub my pepper and my onions under cold running water to be sure that I remove any dirt or bacteria that might be on them. So I'm going to do that, and then when I come back, I'll show you how to make the couscous.
Okay.
Let's make our couscous. I have a small pot here and I've turned my heat on medium. I'm going to add my chicken broth. And here's our couscous. You can see how tiny it is. Couscous actually comes in several different sizes. This is about the smallest, and it can go up to a fairly large size. Also, you can find whole grain couscous sometimes. It is a little more difficult to locate. So when our broth starts to boil, I will stir in the couscous. Our broth is starting to boil, so I am just going to stir in 1/2 cup of couscous into my 1/2 cup of broth. You can see it's already starting to thicken up. At this point, all you have to do is put a lid on it and set it off the heat for 5 minutes. While our couscous is cooking, we'll mix together the rest of the salad. While our couscous is steaming, we're going to go ahead and put our salad together. You're going to need a fairly good sized bowl and a whisk because we're going to make the dressing first. So the dressing calls for 1 1/2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. You can use any vegetable oil that you have on hand. You can use olive oil if you would like. There's the 1. And this actually has a half of a tablespoon in it. So we're going to use that. And then we're going to put in 1 tablespoon of lime juice. You could substitute lemon. And then we need 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you could use other vinegars. It would change the taste just a little bit. And just as a tip, I'm measuring over my bowl, which probably is not a very good practice, but I don't have a lot of room here for this demonstration. But if you're doing it at home, you probably ought to not measure over your bowl. And for the cumin, we need 1/2 of a teaspoon. And this set seems to be missing its half teaspoon. So I'm going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons of ground cumin. Now, all you need to do is to whisk that together. And this is going to be our dressing. There we go. I'm just going to set this on my sink. Now we're going to add our beans. I have opened my can of beans. I washed the top of my beans before I did that, which is a good practice. I also just put my half cup of corn, my canned corn in here, and I ran water over this, and so that removes quite a bit of the sodium. So if you can't buy low sodium vegetables, that's a good practice to use to remove sodium. Black beans are a really nice source of inexpensive protein. Then we're going to add our chopped bell pepper. This is really high in vitamin C and beautiful. Then we have our half of an onion, or in my case, 2 very small onions that have been minced. Minced means to chop into very small pieces, less than 1/4 of an inch. I'm just going to mix that together. Now we're going to get our couscous. It's been steaming on the stove for about 5 minutes. I just dropped my fork. We won't use that. And I'm going to fluff this up with a fork. You can see how it's absorbed all of the broth. And we will just add that in. This salad is definitely one of those that gets better as it sits. I like to let mine sit for at least an hour before I serve it. It's even better if you can make it ahead and let it sit overnight. And then to finish it off, this is optional, but you can put chopped cilantro, or I'm using chopped parsley on the top. So here's our beautiful black bean and couscous salad. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.